So another thing I thought he pointed out that is really interesting is that the owner or the governor of each team that goes to the Board of Governors meeting is going to have to certify each year that this is your compliance report, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're in compliance, which means if you are found to be out of compliance, it is the owner who is on the hook for it. It's whoever certified it. Think of it like your taxes, right? When you sign your taxes, saying, I certify this is true and correct. So does your accountant. And if anything goes wrong, it's you guys who have to answer to the IRS. For owners to put their names on this is a big deal.
You're going to have to be so dumb to get fined and to get in trouble. So, because there's going to be a gray area. Like you said, if you're talking to an agent and this agent represents one guy and maybe another guy that you might want, or, you know, a possible free agent that's on your team, there could be cross-talk. So there's going to be talk. But if we think it's no different than, let's say, PEDs, for every one that pops up and that they start testing for, there's another one that comes on the market that other people will be able to try and use. So I just think that they'll find ways kind of around this, but they can't flaunt the rules like you said.
Well, I was going to say, so maybe there is the middle ground of, hey, we're never going to be talking about, like, what are enforceable rules, like we've been talking about that, and maybe what they've settled on is just kind of the middle ground of, we cannot stop tampering completely to any degree. We all know that people have conversations, but the optics are important. It makes the league look foolish if there's all these deals announced at 6:01 p.m. and we don't want that anymore. And I understand that. That makes sense to me. You know, obviously, one of the big concerns that we've heard reported of in these meetings the past couple days has been, okay, what about these audits? They've talked about 5 teams a year being randomly audited. All their communication has to be submitted. What happens if you submit your phone and they find one thing that they weren't looking for? That they, you know, how does that get you in trouble? Adam Silver addressing some of that too. Take a listen.
I am not interested in looking in any aspects of people's life outside of what is relevant to the operation of their teams, unless, of course, there is an issue that requires we look to something outside the scope of what we're addressing here. And the league has the authority, in essence, to promulgate what those procedures will be going forward.
Well, they say this, but Danny Ferry got in trouble for saying something about Luol Deng that was quite offensive, right? It was very, very offensive, and obviously there were repercussions of this. So what happens if you find something like this? You've already seen somebody get in trouble for saying something, and in this day and age of cancel culture and you know, everyone being very politically correct, if all of a sudden you find language that you shouldn't find and you're just going to ignore that, like, that's something. And again, I don't
think he said they're going to ignore it.
No, but he's saying he's not looking into anything outside of tampering.
He qualified that, right, Ramona?
Yeah, there was a part where he said, unless there's something that we have to.
We have to,
okay,
right?
Well, that's
I mean, that is the very definition of the slippery slope.
Yes.
Right. Okay, that is, you just heard it right there. We're not looking for that stuff unless we have to.
Well, but I think it's sort of look, there's 2 sets of concerns when people say, oh, are you going to start looking through our phones, right? There's the, hey, what about my personal life, right? My personal life isn't any of your business. Things that you might find that you might consider prurient or not appropriate or whatever. I don't want you to be talking about that or addressing that. I think Adam's kind of making it clear in a larger sense he's not going to get into that or anyone's personal life. But when it comes to things like the Danny Ferry incident with Luol Deng, that comes in the unless we have to. And I think, again, I'm kind of comfortable with that too. Once you get into all of this and you are having people auditing these things, it is okay if they find something else that a person who is a front-facing representative or any representative of the NBA should definitely not be doing. It is okay to say, hey, this is against our core values, and that incident with Danny certainly fell under that. And if they find something in someone's phone that fell under that, I'm fine with that.
And I think what's interesting also that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but they've also kind of made it easier to blow the whistle on tampering. So yes, we have the 5 random audits, but in the past, there was a sort of culture where people didn't really turn anyone else in for tampering because they didn't want it to be turned back on themselves. Like, most people didn't say anything because it would be known it was Herb Simon from the Pacers who wanted to look at the Lakers for tampering with Paul George, etc. You don't want to make it personal between owners. Those rules have now been relaxed. Like, there's a lot more anonymous.
Right, but the danger with the anonymous thing, and you know, because you're a reporter who sometimes depends on anonymous sources, if there are anonymous sources in an article, they could be telling you the truth. And it could be something that they just can't put their name to because of, as you say, all the other circumstances around it, or they're afraid they'll lose their job or something. Or it could be that they know under the cloak of anonymity, they can make something up and kind of be like, oh, I can take a shot at this fellow agent, a client who's a rival of my client, because if they get busted for tampering, I can get my client in there instead.
Correct.
Anonymity opens a kind of slippery door of people who have devious motives. This gets back to the piracy that Richard was talking about early on the show. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.